The couch is very comfy. It's very soft. On hot days, it just sucks you in, and then you're there. And then later in the afternoon, the sunlight comes in, and I have a hilarious picture. Second year, Con was sitting right where you are, and I'm talking. I'm like teaching. This is second year apprenticeship. This is like important information that you have. And I'm watching Con because they're right in front of me. And there's just after lunch, and I can see them going. So I took a picture of them. I'll show you. It's the goofiest picture that I've ever taken of them because they're totally just this close to falling asleep, and it's hilarious. It's the funniest picture that I have of them of any. It's so funny. But yeah, that is the danger of that spot.
Well,
it's
you're
very
welcome to take a picture of me if you see me.
I will do that. I'll have both of you up. This will be the sleepy photos from class. All right. Hi, people online. Sorry, you're online. So we have been working with the plant in the last 3 classes, not counting last week because we weren't here for Labor Day. We've been working with horny goatweed. Botanical name of Epimedium. Epimedium. And this is in the Berberaceae family, the family that includes Oregon grape and barberry, lots of other plants that generally we tend to have assumptions on how we use those plants. And this plant, even though it's in that family, and that family has specific chemistry, it's a very different chemistry than the other members of the family. We've got chairs right there. Yep, you can grab that. So the reason that I've been in the last three classes, we've been looking at this plant, horny goatweed, because this is a plant from Chinese herbalism. It is a valued and really exceptional tonic herb in Chinese herbalism. But when it came over into the United States, it got pigeonholed as an aphrodisiac because the botanical name for the pinyin name for it in Chinese, the Chinese name for it translates to licentious goat herb, licentious. So horny goatweed is a direct translation because when goats eat this, they get licentious. Because there are specific effects that this plant has as what in Chinese herbalism we call a kidney yang tonic. And so we've been talking about that in the last couple of weeks, is what does it mean when we're using a plant? Hi, Danielle, good morning. When we're using a plant from a tradition, we want to honor and respect the tradition that it comes from. And this so often happens in Western herbalism. When herbalism comes into dominant culture here, we have ideas about how it works, and we have tendencies to take these complex and involved stories and chemistry and relationship that plants have, and we go, yeah, we're just going to kind of corral that, and we're going to minimize this complexity and make it very easy to think about. So horny goatweed is an aphrodisiac, and that's how we use it here. But when we look at Chinese herbalism, when we look at the tradition of use of horny goatweed as a kidney yang tonic, I'm not going to go into this in detail because this is what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. I do encourage you, if you're not familiar with the term kidney yang tonic, go back and watch the last class because we go into that in detail. But what a kidney yang tonic is. So the kidneys in Chinese herbalism, we don't think of the anatomical system, right? This is a system that we think of in the body that has very specific effects. So the kidney system in Chinese herbalism governs ancestral energy, reproductive energy. It governs sexuality, absolutely. It covers what we call the ancestral energy, that kind of deep core root chakra energy that fuels genetics, it fuels reproduction, it fuels creativity it fuels aging, it fuels the kidneys, it fuels the adrenals. So the adrenals and the kidneys are part of the system, but it's a much more complex system. And so when we look at that, when we look at what does it feel like to support and strengthen a system that looks like that, we can see much more complex concepts than just, I'm going to feel frisky, right? We can see, no, this is nourishing and strengthening fertility. It's nourishing and strengthening aging. It's nourishing and strengthening the ability to generate deep energy reserves, these kind of foundational energy reserves, not the energy that we think of in dominant culture of energy equaling caffeine stimulation, right? But deep energy, this much more healing and much more energizing energy. So that's what a kidney tonic is. Yang, when we talk about yang, right, this is the balance of yin and yang. It's helpful, as we talked about in class, to think of the concepts of, we have a mountain, right, and the mountain has a stream that runs at the base of the mountain, and then there's the sun right here, right? And so we have the sun on the top of the mountain, has a very yang energy. It's an upward energy. It's dry because moisture drains down. It's light, it's hot, dry, light, hot, upward energy, stimulating, warming, right? That is yang energy. The yin energy is the other side of the mountain, right? It's not where the sun goes directly. It's the shaded area. It's lower. It's where the moisture is. It's where all of the plants grow, because that's, shaded area. But there's dampness right there, right? There's darkness, there's rest there. So we have that balance, and every energy, everything has a balance of yin and yang energy, right? And it's not that we want those exactly balanced. It's what are we working with at this point in this body, in this situation, and which of those energies do we want to draw in, right? Sometimes it's very beneficial to have that yang energy. Sometimes it's very beneficial to have that yin energy. Sometimes we want that perfect balance, even though perfect balance isn't actually a thing in the world, right? Perfect balance for our body, perfect balance for my body looks different than perfect balance for your bodies or your bodies. And so when we use these tonics, we can use them to bring about that balance or shift that's going to be beneficial for us. So a kidney yang tonic is something that is nourishing and strengthening, giving warmth and stimulation and vitality to those type of energies, right? So we've been looking at this in the larger complex systems, but now that we've talked about all of that, now we're going to go into use of horny goatweed as an aphrodisiac, right? Because it's going to be a great aphrodisiac, because that is one of the qualities, one of the many qualities that kidney yang tonics have. And now that we've respected that tradition and respected the foundation, now we can go into that with a deeper understanding, a more nuanced understanding, and then we can start to formulate with it for that. So we formulated with epimedium as a general kidney yang tonic last class, and now we're formulating with epimedium as an aphrodisiac, with all of the complexity there, because again, we're moving into a system of complexity with a complex plant and other complex plants. But we always want to be aware of that complexity and nuance. That makes it more fun to play with anything like this, but it also makes it much more able for us to check in with ourselves and see, if I need support in this particular area, what type of support feels best for me and my body and my relationship. It's, again, going to feel differently for all of us. So I've brought some horny goatweed in, and then I've brought in a number of other plants, as Renee was saying. It's like, I grabbed a whole bunch of plants because when I'm standing there in front of the apothecary saying, what plants do I want to have come play when it's like sexy time? There are a lot of plants that come to play when it's sexy time, because it is a complex and nuanced condition, and all of us are going to respond differently. So I'm going to go through some of the primary plants that we combine with horny goatweed, or use by themselves, as a way to facilitate a connection with sensuality and sexuality. And this doesn't have to be for sexy time, because there are people who don't engage in sex, right? There are people who don't care about sex, but we always care about increasing our ability to feel pleasure, increasing our ability to feel nuanced discussions of what pleasure feels like, right? So there's a lot of different ways we can take this. and play with it. All right, but this is more for kind of delight and fun. So we've already talked about Horny goat weed. I'm not going to start there. I'm just going to start on one end. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do I have 10? 10 is usually a number I don't do in plants. I like odd numbers. I like 5s and 7s. 5s and 7s are generally where I like land, but 10 is what we got today. We're going through 10 plants. It's a whole bunch of plants for a sexy time. So the first one, this seems appropriate, is cardamom. I'm going to pass them around to y'all because some people are very familiar with cardamom and some people are not. And this, for me, in fragrances, there are other fragrances that are sexier than cardamom to me, but not many. So there's 3 cardamom pods. You can grab one of those and play with them if you want. With cardamom, this is how we often see it. It comes in pods. So we have green cardamom. There's also a plant called black cardamom, which is related but only distantly, and it's very different. It's generally used for more savory recipes. This is green cardamom. Generally, when we're talking about cardamom, we're talking about green cardamom, not the black cardamom. When you open green cardamom, there will be seeds inside it. And the seeds are what we use for for spice. That's where the fragrance is. Cardamom is a member of the same family as ginger and turmeric and galangal. This is the Zingiberaceae family. And so if we think about it with that kind of concept, it has that warming, spicy feel that ginger has, right? But it's a much more aromatic, and it's not as heating. It's not as spicy as ginger, right? If you were to nibble on one of these, there's a great bakery here in town called Colossus Bakery, also right across from your house in Pedro. Colossus Bakery makes these cardamom buns that are so good. They're so good. They put a lot of cardamom in their buns. And so you can like bite down on one of these little seeds. They're really lovely. But you can see it's very flavorful. It's very aromatic. It's a little bit spicy, but it doesn't have the spice of ginger. Right? So this is a plant where when you want that warmth, because warmth, stimulation, getting circulation going, getting that vitality increased is one of the ways that we can enhance sexual function in the body, right? Is just kind of getting that. Also aromatics, because aromatic plants, things that smell really good, the sense of smell absolutely activates our nervous system, absolutely gets directly into our system more rapidly than anything else. So aromatics definitely play a part, of course, in enhancing sensory sensitivity. But cardamom, I think, is one of the best. It's just one of the sexiest.
It tastes a lot like ginger too.
It does,
I
but
see, but when you're using the pepper, it doesn't really taste.
yeah, it doesn't. It's only, yeah, when you eat it directly, you go, oh, now I get that. I get that connection. A lot more of the floral aromatic quality comes in when it's in a recipe. Cardamom is a euphoric. This is a plant that's called an exhilarant. It increases exhilaration, the feeling of exhilaration, of happiness. This is an action in Unani Tib medicine and Middle Eastern medicine. This is a tradition, a healing tradition of things that exhilarate our body. And I love in this tradition having the concept of exhilaration being a healing quality is delightful to me. I love that so much that they have codified part of the healing process is to feel exhilaration. We don't have that in Western herbalism, right? That's not a concept that we tend to center, although we could and we should. So cardamom, warming, stimulating, not as much as ginger, because sometimes we don't need that much stimulation. We just need a little bit of warmth. Sometimes too much warmth is going to push us all the way into an inflamed and reactive and irritated and twitchy, right? And that's not a way to sink into feeling good and comfortable and happy and sensual in our body being tweaked, right? So it is nice to have something in that spectrum of the ginger spectrum, but isn't quite there, right? Cardamom, I love that for. Cardamom's best friend is rose. The blend of cardamom and rose together is just one of the most delightful blends. And energetically, they're so nice in balancing, right? Because rose is cooling and it's calming, and cardamom is warming and stimulating. But they're both aromatic. They're both euphorics. They're both exhilarants. And so they have this lovely blend, and you very often see cardamom and rose together. Rose, we love rose in aphrodisiacs because it is the plant that most perfectly exemplifies the beauty of showing up as your whole self, as this beautiful, splendid, gorgeous, aromatic, sexy, sensual, big, red, smelly, gorgeous thing, right? That just shows up in the world and you think, how can you be so impossibly gorgeous? Roses also, along with that gorgeousness that they share abundantly, they also have thorns. And so one of the really valuable messages, particularly for women, for rose, is that we get to show up and be present in all of our sexuality and all of our sensuality and all of our beauty and gorgeousness. We get to wear whatever we wear. We get to present in whatever we present. And we also always, at every time, we have our boundaries. We have those thorns that rose has. So they have that sensuality and they have protection, as do we. And so rose is a really good medicine for people who are wanting to tap into that sexuality, into that sensuality, but whose sensuality has also been weaponized against them and have been told, you can't be that sexual, you can't be that sensual because you're asking for it. Right? If you are there present in all of that, then you're going to get raped, you're going to get violence, and you are asking for it because of the way that you are presenting. And that is such a wrong message, right? And it is such a constant message. So rose is one of the reminders that we have that no. That is not true. And of course, there is no discussion about aphrodisiacs without this plant. What is this plant? Did you see the name? So, what is the plant that, other than horny goatweed, there's another plant that is very commonly Damiana. Yeah, Damiana. So Damiana, former name was Turnera aphrodisiaca, was named as an aphrodisiac. Now it's Turnera diffusa because taxonomous. But Damiana is one of our plants that is a tropho-restorative, something that feeds and nourishes and builds the health of the nervous system. That's what a tropho-restorative means. So a tropho-restorative is a tonic, something that deeply strengthens and nourishes and increases the functional capacity of the system that it's going into. Damiana is a tropho-restorative for the nervous system. It feeds and nourishes and builds the nervous system, allows it to increase in its general health. But Damiana is also aromatic, right? Like the rose and cardamom. It has these aromatics, so it moves energy, it stimulates, it has an upward energy. It's warming. It's gently warming, not as much as ginger or cayenne or cinnamon or any of those, but it's warming, and it has an affinity for the pelvic region. So it moves energy in the pelvic region. It's warming and moving and stimulating and aromatic and beautiful and spicy. And it nourishes the nervous system, and it increases the sensitivity of the peripheral nervous system. And this, I think, along with the fact that it is nourishing to the nervous system, I think that combination of the nourishment and the increase in sensitivity is the reason why it is so often categorized as an aphrodisiac. Because if we think about it, for so many people, the lack of ability to connect with sensuality is often stress related. It's often because we live in this world and we're dealing with all of this, and it's just a lot, and we have all of the other things that we're dealing with, and now you might want me to what? You want me to think about what? It's like, I'm kind of busy with ice and with, the economy and with just the world. So nourishing and building and feeding that nervous system so you can sink into, oh yeah, the world is on fire, but I can be here right now in my body in this situation and let that go. So we like to have things that make our bodies feel more pleasurable, make our bodies feel safer, might make our bodies feel able to make that connection. And Damiana can be a very good plant for that because it increases the peripheral sensitivity of the nervous system as you're bringing in information, right? The peripheral nervous system is what gathers information through our senses to bring it into the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal column, to process that and then send that in out. So our senses, sight and smell and hearing and touch and taste, right? These senses, as well as all of our other senses, are part of that peripheral nervous system, and that brings in information. So when we enhance that peripheral nervous system sensitivity, we're able to be in relationship with the world more. And sometimes we've blocked that because sometimes being in relationship with the world is painful. We don't want to be in relationship with the world. It's not a safe thing. And so we, without always thinking about it, we just kind of draw ourselves in, right? It doesn't feel good to be out here and experiencing the world. So we just pull in and pull in, pull in, pull in, pull in, until all of a sudden we check on ourselves and see, oh, this is why maybe I'm not feeling that, because I'm all like this, right? And maybe I just need to relax into that. So Damiana can be very, very beneficial when you're feeling like, I just feel like there's like cotton in between me and my appreciation of the world and my body's experience of experiencing pleasure in the world, right? I just don't have that connection. Damiana is a great plant for enhancing that connection. The other part of that, let me just say this and then I will get right to you. The other part of that is that there are some people who are way too exposed to the world and their nervous systems are just always getting everything coming in. They're overwhelmed by all of that because that is also a reality for many people, is there's so much sensory input coming in. There's so much coming in at us. We don't always have the ability to filter all of that. So sometimes it is too much information. There's a constant barrage of nervous system input and you need to protect yourself from that, in which case you don't want to give Damiana to a person who's feeling that. That person is not going to feel better and safer and more comfortable in their body by increasing sensory input. That's going to make them feel overwhelmed. So it's a really important thing to remember. Just because something is called an aphrodisiac doesn't mean that it's going to be healthy for those bodies. Just because something is a trophorestorative and feeding and nourishing the nervous system doesn't mean it's good for all nervous systems. Right? It depends on if your nervous system needs this. There are other trophorestoratives. Classic one to balance Damiana is milky oats tincture. Milky oats are cooling and calming and moistening and restorative and gentle and everything that Damiana is not. They're both aphrodisiacs, but one is warming and spicy and stimulating, and one is cooling and calming and moistening. Because our body needs what? Our body needs milk.
Can you use them together?
You can use them together and not
Balance
even,
each other.
not just use them together, because exactly, so often for most of us, we need that balance. We need the heat. We also need the moisture. We need the movement and we need the upward. The other thing, of course, beyond that, it's not just that you can have Damiana or you can have milky oats, or you can combine them together. You can also combine them in different ratios, right? A 10-part Damiana to 1 part oat straw or milky oats is going to be very different than a 10 parts oats to 1 part Damiana. So you can ask yourself, hey, how does this body feel about those 2 qualities? Which one am I kind of drawn towards more? And you can kind of check in and feel like, yeah, today I kind of feel like balance would be good. And there's going to be other days when you feel like I want more Damiana energy. And sometimes you're going to feel like I want more marshmallow root, shatavari, milky oat, whatever your moistening energy is, right? So we also want to understand that our body changes in what it needs. And from day to day, there's so many other things that are going to impact us. So yeah, being okay with understanding that your sensuality is a moving target and your body has different needs. The more that we're checking in and just being curious about it and just asking your body, hey, do you want to feel this way? And if not, that's fine. Do you want to feel this way? Do you want to experience these things? And what would make that feel better? Damiana. One of the things I also love about Damiana is that Damiana resists cultivation You cannot buy seeds of Damiana. You will find Damiana seeds, online for sale. They are not Turnera diffusa. It is a different species. And the different species of Turnera are not Damiana. They will not work the same. They don't have the same chemistry. True Damiana Turnera diffusa, you cannot get the seeds from. It will not grow under cultivation. There is one Damiana farm that I know of down in Mexico, and they basically went into the place where Damiana grows and built structures around it and said, "There you go. That's how you make a Damiana farm." You can't designate, a farm and then go in and plant Damiana in nice straight rows. She doesn't like that. Only grows wild. We only find Damiana wildcrafted. And I love that. I love that a plant that is that kind of spicy and sweet and like fun to play with is also like, and also, no, not going to grow on your farm. No, you can't just, there's a great need for Damiana, so we're just going to put in 10 more acres of it. Nope, can't do that. But that also means we want to be really respectful and mindful of the fact that we cannot just grow another plot of Damiana when we need more Damiana. We have X amount of Damiana plants in the world, and they only grow in Mexico and the southwestern areas. And so we want to be respectful and mindful of the fact that we can't just get more Damiana. That being said, Damiana is not at risk. It's not threatened. We do have enough Damiana right now. Okay, that's enough of Damiana. One of the plants that was really used as a stimulant in a lot of different ways in the earlier tradition of Western herbalism is this herb, which is called prickly ash. I'm going to send around a tincture of prickly ash for y'all. Many of you have already had prickly ash tincture. Whenever I'm sending around tinctures, we always want to be mindful that a tincture is an alcohol extract. So if you see the word tincture, it's always going to mean there's alcohol. If you don't use alcohol, you want to pass this right on by. If you do use alcohol, you can try taking a drop of this. When we're passing around tinctures in class, we don't do this because, of course, for obvious reasons. However, herbalists like to use this little flap of skin right here in between your two fingers. This, when you extend it, oftentimes you'll see a little indentation there. This particular area of skin tends to stay really clean, right? Because when we're grabbing stuff and we're doing stuff with these, but this is not touching stuff. So if we're going to be putting stuff in our mouth, much better here than here. If you've been I was just at the gym today, so it was really doing a lot of floor work. So yeah, my hands were gross before. So if we take the back of our hand and we put a couple of drops of tincture right there, we can go in and take a little taste of tincture. Yeah. Not the yummiest tincture in the world, but you're only taking a drop or two. And what I want you to feel is the feeling in your mouth, not so much how it feels in the rest of your body. Certainly feel that. But I want you to feel in your mouth the feeling of prickly ash. Prickly ash contains compounds called isobutylamides that stimulate circulation, stimulate energy flow in the body in a very different way than things like ginger and cayenne and rosemary do, right? These are warming herbs. They're stimulating, they're spicy, they're hot. We were talking about the relationship with that with the cardamom, right? You have these resinous compounds. Resins tend to stick and they activate things. With this, it isn't resinous, it isn't spicy, but you're going to notice kind of a tingling little feeling and an increase in saliva production, which is pretty significant. Yeah. And that the feeling is sometimes a little bit like an electricity, right? Like a little electrical tingle. That is the flavor of acridity. I want you to catalog that in your brain as this is what acrid tastes like. It's not so much a taste, it's more a mouthfeel of that tingly, prickly feeling. But it's a very important taste in herbalism. right? So all of the flavors, when we taste sweet, there's chemistry associated with sweet and sour and bitter and pungent, right? There's all of these flavors associated with these. The flavor of acridity, this flavor of this tingly feeling, is the flavor of compounds that are antispasmodic, right? And think about if you had this feeling in a muscle that was constricted and tight. If you had this kind of tingly, moving energy going through there, it would relax and open, release energy moving through there, because that's what prickly ash does, is releases and opens and moves energy through the body. So it's a very helpful, you still feeling that in your mouth? Yeah. Yeah, you're going to feel it right where it dropped for a little while, because that's what it does. There's an even stronger one called Spilanthes. It is hilarious. You want to try it? I'm going to get Spilanthes out in case y'all want to. This has the highest concentration of the isobutylamides, and this one will really make you feel it. It's hilarious. Yeah, no, there you go. Again, just one drop. This plant, Spilanthes, the one that I gave you, same chemistry as prickly ash, used very differently, but you'll notice the similar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's called toothache plant because it numbs right away, right? It numbs and it increases circulation, and it also is very strongly antimicrobial. So that's one of the things that you're feeling there, is that wherever you're getting that tingliness, it's really, really good for gum health, for oral health. And if you have
It's a little spicy.
it's a little spicy, and you get a lot more of the drooling and the tingling and numbness. Yeah.
Yeah, that keeps coming up.
It keeps coming. It just builds and builds and builds. That is so Spilanthes or buzz buttons are called sometimes, and they're really big in the in bartending right now, because people love to put that into like drinks and go, woo. Oh, also, here you go. This chemistry, the isobutylamide chemistry, is also found in Szechuan peppercorns, right? Chinese 5-spice uses this as one of the spices, because this type of spice is different than other types of spices, right? So to round it out, when you have Chinese 5-spice, you get this kind of tingling electrical spiciness, which is different than all the other ones.
Can you
Okay.
say the iso
Mhm.
something again?
Yes. Isobutylamides are the class of constituents there. Specifically, alkylamides are the ones that are found in. So the primary class, specific compounds. You are welcome. So that tingling thing. So whenever we have constriction, remember when I was talking at the very beginning, it's really hard to kind of feel sexually when you're like this, right? So we want things that are going to be releasing that energy. And prickly ash is a really effective one. Anything with isobutylamides is going to be really effective for releasing constriction. So when you're feeling like that constriction is blocking the clear flow and movement of energy through your body, that can be associated with many different situations, not just sexuality, but that blockage in the ability of energy and fluids and blood flow and everything to circulate evenly through the body, and certainly to the genitals, but also throughout the body. That ability to increase blood flow and get everything moving and wake everything up can be really, really helpful for those people with a physical pattern of stagnation. Nothing's moving. I feel stagnant. I don't have this feeling of spiciness, right? There's no spice. It's giving a little bit of spiciness and a little bit of movement. Again, for someone who's too spicy, this is not going to feel good, right? If they're all reactive, then that is not going to be a message that comes into their body and goes, oh yeah, this feels good. This is going to feel like, oh my God, there's one more thing to be kind of agitated about, right? So not good for everyone, but really great for those who need it. Cacao. So another friend of cardamom and rose and damiana. This is a very classic combination for aphrodisiac blends. You'll almost always see in an herbal aphrodisiac blend, very commonly we'll have the combination of damiana and rose and cardamom and cacao because they're delicious together and very effective. Cacao contains phenylethylamine, which is a PEA. It's a compound that gives us the feeling of love. That is the chemical that our body produces when it's in love, is PEA. Or one of them, there's oxytocin, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Love is complex. But one of the things that gives us that feeling is PEA, which is found in cacao. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, yes, yeah, absolutely. P. Yeah, so we've got that little bit of caffeine, a little bit of theobromine. These are alkaloids that are stimulating, energizing, right? Caffeine. And there is a little bit of it here. Now, when you're using cacao in tea blends, there's two different cacaos that you'll generally see in an apothecary. You'll see cacao nibs, right? Most people know cacao nibs nowadays. That's one of the primary ways that you'll see raw cacao, other than like powders. Raw, unprocessed cacao. I should have brought some cacao nibs to show you. Cacao nibs are great to eat. They're great to sprinkle on your food. They're great to add into things. They are not great to use in teas because they're the whole cacao bean that has just been crushed and made available. The problem is that cacao bean has a very high amount of cocoa butter in it because cocoa butter is in the bean. Seeds and beans are always very high in oils and fats. That's where we get most of oils and fats in the world are from seeds. And so the cocoa bean has a lot of cocoa butter in it. That cocoa butter is pulled out and used for cocoa butter. And when you pull the cocoa butter out, now you have cocoa powder, and that is soluble in water. So cocoa powder is the form of cacao that you'll generally see for making recipes and all of that, because everything else is too fatty and it won't break down, it won't melt into things. It's just fatty. And when you're making a tea is a water extraction. So things that are fat soluble, things that are fatty are not going to pull out in fat because fat and water don't mix. And so if you have cacao nibs and you try to make a tea blend with cacao nibs, those are just going to be little cacao nibs in your tea blend, but they're not going to pull out into your tea. Your tea isn't going to taste chocolatey because you're using water extraction and there's too much fat in there. Cacao shells are the way that you introduce a cacao flavor into a tea, or the powder, but powder is going to drop down into the bottom of your tea blend. It's just going to not work very well. Cacao shells are brilliant. They're beautiful. They smell and taste like cacao. There's a little bit of caffeine in there, but because it's the shell, all of the fat is in the bean itself. And this just has the flavor compounds and the caffeine. So lovely. Oh my God. Lovely smell, lovely flavor. Such a good thing to use in your teas when you want cacao. But there is some caffeine there. I'm just gonna pass this around so you can smell it, because really, oh, it's just chocolate. Cinnamon is another one that I have in here, and I'm gonna write these last three. We're almost there. Cinnamon, it's cinnamon. It's warming. It's spicy. It's moving that energy. It's cinnamon. That's all I'm going to say about cinnamon, because really, what more do you need to say about cinnamon? Mimosa bark. So we've worked with mimosa a couple of times this year. We had a 3-week section where we were specifically looking at mimosa as a medicinal plant. So we're bringing mimosa back here. I've got the bark, and we could use flower. Mimosa P is the pinyin name, translates to tree of collective happiness. This is the tree of happiness in Chinese herbalism. And so we use mimosa when we want to engender a feeling of happiness, a feeling of peace and joy. It is a gentle and beautiful little plant. And sometimes that's what we need also. We just need some peace and joy to be able to get in and feel that. So mimosa bark, such a lovely little anti-inflammatory, supports joint and ligament and tendon pain, but really just that little uplifting quality that it has. Blue vervain is another tropho-restorative for the nervous system, but blue vervain has some very specific effects that can make it really beneficial and also totally not beneficial for certain people. So blue vervain is a very strong sedative. It's a very strong sedative. We use blue vervain for anxiety, for insomnia, for agitated conditions where we need to calm that person down. But it does also feed and nourish and build the nervous system. So it is great to take over a longer period of time, kind of like Damiana, for strengthening the nervous system. Again, tropho-restorative, but the effects are much more strongly sedating and calming. Not everyone's going to want that in their formula, but it can be very good if there is a quality of anxiety and tension and jitteriness around there. Particularly blue vervain, we associate blue vervain with muscle tension. We associate blue vervain particularly with neck pain and tightness and upper shoulder. So when there's a lot of tension here, and this translates into one of the traditional ways of using blue vervain is for people who are rigid, who are stiff-necked, right? In their beliefs, in their way that they're in the world. I have an inability to see a different way of being in the world or thinking or doing, right? It's just, this is the way that things are, and this is the way that I do things, and this is the way things have to be. Those people who are obsessed with this is the way, and they cannot have the flexibility to see other things. Sometimes that's us, sometimes that's people that we have to deal with, but when we need that flexibility, that loosening up of the stiff neck, blue vervain is one of the primary plants we use for that. So for the physiological stiff neck, but also for the just psychological, you need to like pull the stick out, right? And just have a little bit more kind of flexibility and fluidity. That can also come into play in our sensuality and in our sexuality, right? Sometimes we have feelings like, no, it's supposed to be this way. You say, you know what? This is play. This is fun. We should not have this rigidity here, right? So blue vervain can be a really lovely plant. It is incredibly bitter. It is not yummy tasting. It is definitely not a plant that you want to add to a blend. If you were to make a Damiana and cacao and cinnamon and rose and cardamom blend, you wouldn't then throw blue vervain in there because all of that would be so beautiful. And then you made it all bitter and nasty by adding in the blue vervain. If you're going to add blue vervain into a formula, either make a tincture, you can just squeeze it in, or even better, make that other blend, have that be your delightful, gorgeous, tasty blend. Make your blue vervain, and then just take a shot of blue vervain. Just knock it back. Take your tea, cool it down so you can drink it really quickly. Hot tea, you have to sip. You don't want to sip blue vervain, but you just take a shot glass and just take a shot of blue vervain, and then you can take your other beautiful tasting tea and you can drink that at your leisure, and that's going to be beautiful and help to clean your mouth out of the taste of the blue vervain. But really, it is incredibly bitter, and very acrid, not to the degree of that other one, but you have that combination of acridity and bitterness. So
We only really do tincture since it's so bitter.
I really love blue vervain as a tincture. Yes. Yeah, because of because of the flavor issue. And it's a strong medicine. You don't need a whole cup of blue vervain, a dropper full. Lots of people are learning about blue vervain. Blue vervain is a plant that is beloved there's a traditional Jamaican herbalist named Dr. Sebi. Dr. Sebi has a lot of information that has come up. He passed away, but his family continues to produce information. There's stuff that he says about blue vervain that I'm not going to get into that I don't necessarily agree with. But he tends to like just everyone should take blue vervain. Everyone in the whole world should take blue vervain. It's like, It's kind of a big and intense plant, so maybe not everyone should take blue vervain, but I don't think everyone should take everything. But certainly, if that is a plant that speaks to you, that offering, that gift that it has speaks to you, then absolutely you could. Obviously, it speaks to Dr. Sebi. It's not going to speak to everyone. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you make that into a glycerine? Would it
Mm-hmm.
minimize the bitter effects of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you made it into a glyceride is a glycerin extract instead of using alcohol or water as a tea. A glycerin extract, glycerin is great to extract anything that is water soluble, right? Glycerin is not a non-polar solvent, so it wouldn't work if you had something that really needed alcohol. But if it makes a water extract, which it does, glycerin would be great. The sweetness of glycerin has a lot of sweetness to it inherently. Here's a chamomile glyceride, so you can get what I'm thinking. So you can see with this chamomile glyceride, the flavor that Renee is talking about, the flavor of the glycerin, the sweetness, will cover the flavor of a lot of herbs because of that sweetness. Now, because of the bitterness of blue vervain, the bitter flavor is sometimes a really important part of the medicine of the plant, particularly when we're using it for digestive practices. And you want the bitterness. You need the bitterness. You need to taste the bitter if the bitter is part of the medicine for you. Here, though, it's not necessarily. If you're using it for the nervine effect, you don't care about the bitter.
Yeah, because I want to try it for sleeping.
Mhm.
But I don't want
You
to
don't
stay
want-
away from bitters for a while.
Oh, that's right. Yes. For you, this isn't even going to be very bitter. You'll still taste the acridity. It's not going to taste good. But
Glycerine.
she plays with just some monster bitter plants, so
Not anymore.
she's a weirdo. Yeah, you've still ruined your taste buds in their ability to like taste actual bitter stuff. So yeah, you'll be fine with it. And the final plant for this discussion is Shatavari. Shatavari is a species of asparagus, and this is the root. So you'll see it called asparagus root. This isn't our culinary asparagus, it's a different species, but very similar. Asparagus racemosa is this one. So Shatavari is the Sanskrit name. It translates to, this is so heteronormative, it translates to a woman with 1,000 husbands. Yeah. I don't like that. I'm sorry. One was too much for me. And 1,000 was like, no. But the reason that it's called that is because Shatavari is a trophorestorative to the reproductive system. It isn't hormonal, but it is nourishing and moistening. This is the primary medicine of Shatavari, is it brings moisture and fluidity to the body, particularly to the vulva, the vaginal canal. So it's really good for patterns of dryness. And this is often what happens when we're in perimenopause to menopause, or if we have a body that is just inherently dry. And some of us just have that, right? We just have bodies that are inherently hot, inherently dry, inherently cold, inherently damp, right? We have bodies that through no pattern of pathology, this isn't a pathology, there's nothing wrong with your body if you have a body that is inherently dry. I have a body that was inherently dry even before I went through menopause, just because that's how my body was made. But there's always been a problem with my body with hair and nails and sinuses and everything. I've always had to like fight against dryness, patterns of dryness. Other people fight against patterns of dampness, right? They're always kind of holding fluid in their body. Their skin is too oily, their hair is too oily, they hold onto a lot of water, edema, a lot of patterns of holding onto moisture, patterns of an inability to hold onto moisture. These are the kinds of things that we think of when we're thinking of energetics of plants. So Shatavari, when we have a body that is either constitutionally just tends towards dryness, or a body that has gone through menopause, or another condition where we have the estrogen levels are dropping down. Estrogen holds moisture in the body, right? It's one of the things that estrogen does. So when we have abundant estrogen in our bodies, our skin becomes soft, our hair becomes soft, our body is able to hold more moisture, everything just kind of softens, right? And as estrogen levels drop down, the opposite holds true. We tend to become drier. skin becomes thinner, more fragile. Vaginal tissue becomes thinner, as well as facial and other skin tissue, right? Our body becomes unable to hold moisture as effectively. So we need to go in with other things that remind our body to hold moisture. And shatavari is a very good one for that. It's really, really good, particularly when there's vaginal dryness. The vaginal dryness that comes with perimenopause, menopause, or with constitutional dryness can be really problematic in those people who want to engage in penetrative sex. And then you can have comfortable penetrative sex if you don't have moisture, if you don't have vaginal moisture. And so, you can use lubes, all of that, but it's really nice to allow your body to get to that state where it can do that on its own, right? That's optimally what we want. So many systems, when they're out of balance, how do we bring our body back into a state where it can do what it's supposed to do on its own, or at least to the best of its abilities? Shatavari is great for that. Yeah.
Spelling of it.
Shatavari, sometimes pronounced shatavari. Both of them are accurate. And then asparagus racemosa is the botanical name. Great. And there's other plants that are good for holding moisture also. We can go with just the standard moistening plants of marshmallow and cyprium and nopal and okra and things like that. They're all great. They're all wonderful. But there is that affinity for the reproductive system, for the reproductive health, that makes shatavari particularly beneficial.
Is that a
Asparagus won't do it. It is a root. Yeah, yeah. And so with all roots, it is going to be, you're going to be decocting. So those are your 10 plants that are going to have sometimes profound, sometimes more gentle, sometimes ancillary effects on sexuality and sensuality. So what I want you to do then is, your job is to go through that list and think about the things that are going to impact you. Now, I've told you the ones that have stronger flavors or problematic flavors or problematic effects. Everything else there is pretty neutral or yummy tasting. So really, except for the blue vervain, everything else tastes fine or neutral. So I don't want you to worry about the flavor of your blend, and I don't want you to worry about the qualities, the safety of your blend. Everything here is very safe. It's very nourishing. The blue vervain is a little bit intense. Everything else, and the prickly ash for the qualities, but it's not harmful, right? It's not harmful to salivate a whole bunch. You just salivate a whole bunch. Everything else, fine. So feel free to be creative and play with all of this, and you can be intuitive about it. You can be very mindful and methodical about it. You can do whatever you want in terms of playing with these plants. You've got bags right there that you can just make a tea blend, play around with that and fill those up. Put the list of all of the herbs that you want that you have in your blend in your bag, so you remember what your formula was. If you were in my apprenticeship program, I would make you measure out all of that and put it into exact parts so that you could reproduce the formula. I'm not going to do that today. It's fine. It's going to be great. You'll be able to reproduce this formula. Will it be exactly what you make in class today? Probably not, because you're going to have some interesting blends, but it'll be close. It'll be fine. And if you do want to measure, if you do want to write down your amounts, you absolutely can, because this is your experience. And if you feel very uncomfortable with, I'm just going to throw things in there and let them be, I understand that. And you can absolutely measure it if that's what makes you feel more comfortable with this experience. But I encourage you to allow yourself to have a different experience and just kind of play around with it, because that is also a very good way of doing herbalism. And that way it's very much like cooking, right? And we talk about this in class a lot. There are ways of cooking that are creative and wonderful. And you just throw open the kitchen, the refrigerator, you go, I'm just going to throw all of this into a pot. And it's beautiful. That's soup making, right? That's how the best soups are, just made in that way. But it's not bread making, right? Bread making, you can't be doing that. You can't be doing that. So there are recipes where it's appropriate to be creative, and there's recipes where it's appropriate to follow directions. And both of those are great things to do. So this one, I encourage you to be creative and fun. If you need the guidelines, you get to have guidelines, and I will help you out with that, whatever you need. All right, any questions about any of that? Yes.
Sorry, I was a little late.
I know, that's
Prickly
fine.
ash, can that be decocted or? something?
Prickly ash is decocted, yep, absolutely. So
And the horny goat weed, that's
the horny goat weed is a leaf. So if you were to properly, so the shatavari, prickly ash, and the mimosa bark, of all of those would be the ones that would be. Cinnamon can be decocted. You don't necessarily have to. It's kind of like ginger in that respect. Yes, yeah, it's got aromatics, but they're resinous aromatics, and so they're not as volatile. They don't leave the way that peppermint or rose or any of the other ones are. All right. Any other questions? So you are going to go to town. Here are your spoons, bags. Blend in here, put it in here, put your labels on. Go to town. All right. Folks online, if you have any questions about any of that, I will stay while folks here are doing their blending. I'll stay for as long as you need me to answer any questions. And then we will turn off the video and let folks here go to town. So any questions for you people at home before we end the class? Next week, we'll be starting a new plant. This is the third class for epimedium. This is our the end of our discussion on epimedium. So don't know what class I will be, what plant I'll have for you next week. If you have ideas, you can put them in the chat. All right. I will see you all next week. Thanks for showing up. Have a good weekend. Good week.